They call him Johnny Rock and Roll. They call him Johnny Rock and Roll. They call him Johnny Rock and Roll. He gets you hot if you're cold.
Listen all day and all night.
Eat the steak and then get a pen.
Oh, gnarly!
Welcome to the Indiana Fine Woodworking Association Awards. I'm your host, Martin Housley, and wow, it's going to be a great show. Knock on wood.
When you hear the music, that's your cue. Any questions?
Oh, the package that we paid for said the aisle was supposed to be strewn with rose petals?
Where are the rose petals?
We're out!
Which means he's got zero confidence in what he just said.
The eyes of a cheat who thinks he has all the cards, but who knows I'm telling the truth.
That cave-in that happened 3 years ago, that wiped him out. He hasn't recovered from that. 29 people died. Gainsley's entire fortune was diverted off to compensate the families. So, you going to design school, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to design school, too. Can I have a piece of chicken?
Well, not everybody makes it.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I spent 6 years working for Hilfiger in his West Coast design shop. Then I did accessories for Ralph Lauren.
I'm directing this movie, got Kate Winslet, Academy Award winner. There's this part the character actually does a couple of voices. And it's interesting you want to do this dramatic acting because I need both.
Maybe that's too strong a word. I could definitely, come back into it, dip in, again.
Robert De Niro, he came back into the ring after all those years. He said he'd never come back, but he came back.
Came back a little bit.
Little bit.
Is this seat taken?
I'm sorry, this seat?
This exact
This
seat.
exact seat?
Yeah,
You know what? I'm afraid it is. Yeah, I'm expecting some gentlemen callers. They're all going to line up to sit right there.
Yeah, I imagine George Clooney's gonna stop by and show you his dimple.
Am I out of my mind? Or was that the worst Russell Crowe impression in the history of the world?
I mean, it wasn't even an impression. He barely changed his voice.
I know, and they're just eating it up like it's the greatest thing in the world.
But Russell Crowe is definitely, my one.
Yeah, well, he's the best.
Yeah. My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, Commander of the Northern
I'm sorry.
My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, Commander of the Northern Armies, General of the Felix Legions. I will have my vengeance in this life or the next.
You see, it's not a one-dimensional thing. Okay, there's a real performance there that you're paying tribute to. You're trying to, give it a tribute or an homage or trumage. You're trying to do that, but you're not. You just memorize the lines. Excuse me, it's okay. I got it. It's like I'm smoking dope, watching TV. Of course, it's going to be imprinted in your mind, but that doesn't make it a performance. We've got to give at least some kind of credit to Russell Crowe. But I think we're all thinking the same thing. It's not an impression. It's more of a fan impression. No, I got this, Russ. I got this. What you're doing, it's fine. It's just on one level. That's right. You got to bring it up. Right? We're all thinking the same thing, right? My God, my daughter could do that better when she was a little kid, a little twerp in diapers. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, everybody out there in Radio Land. Your buddy Johnny Rock here. Today, our special guest is Jim Meskimen. He is the son of American TV mom, Marion Ross, best known as Mrs. C from Happy Days. Jim Meskimen has become the actor that Hollywood is turning to appear as historic or recognizable characters, currently playing Senator Edward Gurney opposite Julia Roberts and Sean Penn in Gaslit, which just launched on Starz. It's a limited series about Martha Mitchell and her Watergate whistleblowing. Jim has also just been cast to play Phil Donahue in the yet untitled Chippendales Project. He's currently appearing in Hunters starring Al Pacino and Carol Kane, and has a recurring role in The Big Door Prize by creators of Schitt's Creek. In addition, Jim has launched an online course on how to become a working actor, with special courses in voiceover and even impressions. Here to tell us all about that and more is Jim Meskimen. Welcome to Johnny Rock and Roll Radio. Good to have you, Jim.
Thank you,
Johnny. I love your setup there.
Yes, this is the room I'll be buried in one day.
I came across you on TikTok.
Very good. Yeah, I've gotten very good responses from TikTok lately. I have one video that has over 7 million views, which is amazing.
Oh, okay. Well, the last I checked, it was 5 million.
No, it's rising, keeps going. People still like it.
Yeah, TikTok just seems to really be picking up. And we're going to talk about that because I want you to reenact that video later on.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
I'm not sure I can. I'll
what
do
I
something.
want, what's that?
I'll do something. I can't reenact it, but I'll do something for
Yeah,
you.
we're not. I mean, yeah. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Now I do. Yeah.
Those 5 voices.
Uh-huh.
How many voices do you do?
More than 12. I don't know. I lose track, actually. There's a lot. I'd say in the realm of in the 80s, I think.
Yeah. When I first started out, I started off doing impressions.
Oh.
When I was 13 years old, I started off doing Andy Kaufman.
Okay.
And Rodney Dangerfield and Elvis. Now the only one that I do is Wolfman Jack, and I imagine you grew up with Wolfman Jack.
A little bit, yeah. He was a little bit ahead of me, but for sure. And I was thinking when we were just fumphering around getting this set up, I thought, I'll bet Johnny can do a really good Wolfman Jack.
Well, it all depends on the situation, you understand?
Yeah, perfect.
When did you first, let's go back to the very beginning. When did you first, growing up with Marion Ross to begin with as your mom?
Yeah.
And you actually visited the Happy Days set. Were you already interested in the entertainment field before then, or when did that happen?
Somewhat, yeah. I mean, it's very attractive. It's very mysterious and fun. And, you go to inside Paramount Studios. I remember the first time I went there, I was about 12 or 13. It seemed like a magical place. There were 3 channels. So, television was a very big deal. And Mom's show was not a huge staggering hit off the bat. It had time to grow a little bit. And, but I was interested. And I did have a kind of a hidden desire to perform. I say hidden because I was really, really super shy. And so I really didn't have the courage to put myself out, which, was understandable. I really didn't have any skills. But over the years, I developed them and got very interested in being in front of people. But those early days on the Happy Days set were, just fascinating, particularly when the show became, I don't know if you know this or if your listeners realize this or not, but it started off as a single camera show, which means no live audience, filmed like a movie, one camera, and then they set it up and do the other side, which is a whole different ball of wax. Then around, I think it was the 3rd season, they had the idea, let's open this up and do a multicam thing, like Everybody Loves Raymond or the Dick Van Dyke Show or something like that. So, or Friends for that matter. So that made it a hit because the audience interaction was enormous. And by that time, Fonzie, the character Fonzie, which perhaps you young people have heard from the elders, was a very significant person. Fonzie, played by Henry Winkler, was like Elvis. He was just, people would just go nuts. And so to be on stage 19 in the bleachers, watching them perform every week was like going to a concert, a big, wonderful concert.
Wow. Yeah. So Marion Ross, your mom, I have 2 Marion Ross stories.
Let's hear them.
It was at UNO in New Orleans, and it was the Happy Days baseball.
Softball.
Softball, okay. And Henry Winkler wasn't there, but I think everybody else was. Mm-hmm. Now, when the game ended, your mom was on the bus. There was a school bus that they came in. Yeah. So your mom is just like in the middle of the bus, and she's sitting at the window seat in the middle, and I'm waving at her, and she looks at me, and I go, she had a sweatband on her head, and I'm going like this, and she goes, and she got up, and she got up and came all the way to the door. I went around the bus, and she handed it to me, and I'll tell you what, I cherish that thing so much. And it was actually one of those bands that have water in it, and you freeze it. So, but I thought that was so kind of her to get up and walk to the door, because a lot of times people just like wave you off or, go, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know, but she was very sweet.
Yeah.
And then
she'll give you the sweat off her head.
Huh?
She'll give you the sweat off her head. That's my mom.
She did. And then I was interviewing Anson Williams. Mm-hmm. I forget what year it was. like early 90s. And I asked him, I said, was Marion Ross like everybody's mom on set? He goes, Mom, are you kidding me? Marion is hot. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. And so that's my two Marion Ross stories. And I understand she just celebrated her birthday on the 25th.
That's right. She turned 94, and we took her down to Oceanside, California, where she was. It was a nice event from the California Coastal Rose Society. There was a grower that created a hybrid rose, a beautiful rose, and named it the Marion Ross Rose. And so that was the official release this weekend down in Oceanside. And there was an auction, and we all went, my wife and I and her assistant, and we just had a really swell time, and they treated her great. They had a cake. We sang happy birthday. We made a big fuss over her and her rose, and we got several roses to take home. So if anybody out there is a rose enthusiast, there is now the Marion Ross rose. It's lovely, and you can grow it in your garden.
Right on. My fiance Julianne is a plant person. Everything, she loves plants. So
Maybe she'll like that. The only thing I would say, it's the Marion Ross rose, but don't sit on it.
Hey, I see what you did there. That's a good one. So I was looking at your IMDb, and I'm very impressed with that. You've got over 300 and I think it's 303 credits, and that just blew me away. And I was scrolling, and I noticed that you've done some Scooby. Is that games or?
Mostly series. I think there's one film or a couple of films. I've been involved with Hanna-Barbera projects and those characters, gosh, for a really long time. In fact, when I was 17, I worked at Hanna-Barbera as an assistant storyboard man, because I'm also, my first career was as a visual artist and cartoonist and an illustrator. So I worked at Hanna-Barbera during those times when, Scooby-Doo was going on. And then later on, I was part of a cast of a reboot, Scooby and Shaggy Get a Clue. And then, as you mentioned, I did some voices, although I don't remember what I did in the movie Scoob. In fact, I have my doubts that it's really me, but I must have gotten a show at one point or another.
And I find voiceover work just incredible, because you don't have to dress up, for one thing.
But the microphone and the equipment appreciates it, I think. Like I put on a clean shirt when I come into my booth to work, because the foam, I think, feels when you're making an effort.
And I think also it makes you feel professional.
That's true too.
Yeah. So tell us how. Okay, you started off as an illustrator.
Mm-hmm.
And then how did you make that transition?
Well, when I was a kid, I liked to draw. And as I said, I was a little bit shy, so I wasn't that outgoing. And I wasn't, I tried out for plays and things, but I think I kind of shot myself in the foot a lot of times and didn't do as well in the auditions. Auditions they're their own kind of performance and their own kind of beast. And I flatter myself that I've gotten better at it. But so I drew. I was the kid who drew in class. I drew from, things I saw. I wanted to draw like Mad Magazine guys. I love Mad Magazine. So that was a career where I actually started making some money when I was pretty young. And so I thought, well, I want to paint. I want to be a serious artist. And I pursued that for a while. But I also had this love of performing that was kind of secret to me, and I held close to the vest. And when I got into college, I did do plays. And I found that I liked it a lot. And so I eventually determined that, the arts are great, all of them. And I like to draw and paint, but it's a little too solitary for me. So I want to get into a more social kind of art form. So I made a commitment to come to New York and pursue acting. But on the way, I knew that I wouldn't be able to just get acting work immediately, but I was pretty sure I could get illustration and cartooning work immediately, because I had a portfolio and I knew that I could hustle and pull that off. So that's how I supported myself as I was segueing into my acting career. And I designed all kinds of stuff. I did little spot jobs here and there. I did an awful lot of work for King Features Syndicate. And then I got a great job designing characters for Rankin Bass Productions, famous studio. And I did character design for a show called Thundercats.
I remember them.
All the secondary characters, weapons, and vehicles for that show. So that was a really great job. And by the time I was done with that job, I was doing voiceover and commercials. And then I just kind of never looked back. And I do artwork now for my own pleasure and for special things that people need, but I don't rely on it for a living. And I've been an actor for over 35 years now.
Wow. Now, what do you prefer the most? Do you have a favorite? You know, I know there's a big difference between theater and film, because you know, for theater you get that instant gratification for one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but what do you like better, theater or film?
Well, I do like I like working on good films, and I like working in front of a live audience. I do my one-man show, Jim Impressions, which is being rebooted now and changed into something else. But you know, I've worked on some really great Oscar-nominated films like Apollo 13 and Frost Nixon, and those are a great pleasure to work on.
I would imagine,
yeah.
Great
So
films.
if it's if it's a really great project that has a lot of meaning and is demands a lot of me, I like that. But I also just like to be in front of people. I like to create and hear, like you said, the instant gratification of people laughing or interacting.
Yeah. Now, and what technique do you use for memorization?
Oh, well, my wife has an acting school called the Acting Center. And I never really had a technique. I just was trying to pound it into my head like a lot of people do. But lately, I've been using the techniques that they offer at the Acting Center, and it's much easier. I can't really describe it too much because I'm not that articulate about it. But basically, the most important, what I've learned from studying at my wife's school, you'd think that I would have known all this, but I never really had a technique before, is that the most important thing is not the words, but the character and the viewpoint of the character. And once you really have decided about that, the lines come a lot easier. It's very interesting. It's almost like if you're going by train or by car or by plane, the route gets pretty simple, because if you're going to go one way, it's a whole different path, but you're going to get to where you're going to get. I just made up that metaphor. I don't know if it's really applicable.
It's a good one. It's funny. It's funny because as I'm watching you speak, I'm watching your facial expressions, and after hearing and seeing your Jim Impressions, I can see Robin Williams in your face. I can see Al Pacino? But no, I'm sorry, Robert De Niro. I can say, yeah, right there, you just did it. You're doing it now.
I can't help it. I mean, you brought it up, so yeah.
Now, you played. I think one of the hardest things for an actor is to play a real character, somebody that actually lived. Because it's if it's a fictional character, you pretty much create the character yourself,
Right.
But when you're portraying a living or past living character, the people can be very, very critical.
Sure.
I'm sure you know that, especially like Elvis, for instance.
Right.
That guy had so much and Austin Butler. The pressure on him had to be enormous, but he nailed it. Now. You played Johnny Carson, am I correct?
Yes, I played Johnny Carson several times, yeah. And it's always fun. I tell you, now, you mentioned that it's difficult to do, but in some ways it's easier to do because we have all this wonderful footage on YouTube and other platforms to really study and get to know the mannerisms and, to sort of drill it in. And once you do that, he says, breaking back into Jim, it's somewhat easier. It's somewhat easier. But like you say, people do have expectations. I notice that, like when I see certain performers and I'm a little bit prejudiced. If they look like them, that's great. If they sound like them, then I'm really happy. I'm just really into the audio channel, I guess. And so certain performers like Gary Oldman in the Winston Churchill movie, and Kenneth Branagh has portrayed famous people like Laurence Olivier, and they took the time to get the voice down, and I like that. I really appreciate it. I think we'll forgive them. We'll forgive them for not looking like somebody. I mean, it's sort of hard to really match them, and if they got too many prosthetics on, then we're like, all right, well,
that's cheating too.
Right, right. I, for me, if someone's doing an impression and I can see them, if they don't look like them, I don't look at them, because if I'm looking at them, it doesn't work for me, because the visual is important when you're making yourself visible. 100%. And I just kudos to you for yours. I had a question. Have you ever impersonated a person for them, like a living being that you impersonate? Were you able to do it for them face to face?
I think it'll happen in the future, but I try not to, because we hear ourselves differently than how we sound to others, right? When you know this very well from your own broadcasting experience, is that your own recorded voice sounds very different from the voice that you hear, because we hear our voices through this wonderful chamber of our body, and it's warm and mellow and deep and sonorous and lovely and smooth, and then you hear it recorded and it's got all that taken out of it, and it sounds brittle and kind of weedy. And so if I do a really great impression of a celebrity to that celebrity, I can't win. It's not going to be how they hear themselves. And it's very hard to make it to present it in such a way that doesn't seem like you're making fun of them, and that's not a great way to meet anybody.
Yeah. Well, I want to share this story with you about Sylvester Stallone.
Mm-hmm.
I was working in the art department on the Expendables, and he was about to come that day for the walkthrough, and everybody was told, you don't talk to him unless he talks to you first. When I already knew that rule. So me and about 5 guys were standing outside in a circle taking a break. And sure enough, he walks right out of the door with his little entourage, and he looked right at me and he goes, "Yeah, how you doing?" But he kept on walking, and I thought, hey, he asked me a question. He said, "Yeah, how you doing?" So that, boom, I went, and he's walking away. His back's to me, and I went, "Yeah, I'm doing all right. How you doing?" And he stopped dead in his tracks. He turned around and went, took a cigar and went, "That's pretty good." Oh man, we were high-fiving. I mean, that just made my month, So you said you do about 12 voices. Before we move on,
I was joking, by the way.
Oh, I thought so. I didn't want to.
No, later on, I said I do probably in the area of the 80s. In the 80s.
Oh, okay, that's right. Okay, so in the TikTok. Was that the video that got to 5 million views in 5 days? You did George W. Bush.
That's right.
Tommy Jones, Patrick Stewart, Robert De Niro, and Robin Williams.
That's right. That's on there right now. Your people can take a look at it. Yeah. I did a series of voices. I did Robert De Niro, as I said. I did George W. Bush as well, because he was president. And Robin Williams, I do Robin Williams' voice every now and then. It always brings back wonderful memories for people. I think that sort of kind and empathetic delivery, done at 78 RPM, something wonderful about it. And then what was the other one?
That is
Patrick Stewart. Sir Patrick Stewart, of course, who is really one of the most charming sort of people you can think of. I'd love to, of all those people that I did in the TikTok, I think I'd love to sit at a table with Sir Patrick Stewart and find out what moments in the theatre he has had that are very memorable for being flawed or accidental.
That's brilliant. Kudos. Bravo. And I heard Patrick Stewart is actually very cordial.
Yes, I imagine he is.
Yeah. So let's go. I want to talk about when you did America's Got Talent.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell us about that experience.
It was difficult, I have to say. I mean, I was lucky. I didn't have to audition. I submitted some of my YouTube videos. I have a very thriving YouTube channel, and they looked at some of those videos and they said, "Well, we'd like to have you on the show." So that was good. I didn't have to do the big cattle call, but it was difficult. But you have to still, sort of create the show with them and create the act with them. You don't just get to do whatever you want to do. They have a pretty heavy hand on it. So that's fine. But I got to perform in front of 6,000 people at Radio City Music Hall, which was my goal. I wanted to be in front of all those people, see what that was like, experience that. And it was exhilarating. My mom came, it was my wife, it was a lot of fun.
My name is Jim Meskimen. I'm 53 years old, and I am a comedian impressionist. I was very lucky to grow up with a wonderful professional actress mother, Marion Ross, who starred on Happy Days for 11 seasons. I learned from my mom that you need to have a very solid work ethic. If the career isn't happening, you make the career happen. You reach and you try something new, and you call people, and you put up a show, and you write something. And so I've been doing that for years and years.
I'm so proud of my son. I know how hard it is to make something of yourself in this business, and he deserves all the success in the world.
My wife and my daughter, we are a team. I'm very lucky because I face rejection all day long, and when I return at the end of the day, my family is there, and they just make all that go away. I would love to make my wife, my mother, and my daughter proud. I've been a performer for 30 years, and the clock is ticking. I want them to go, Jim, you nailed it.
Let's make a little movie, shall we? Let's make a movie about a historical figure. Howard, would you give me the name of a famous man in history?
One we'd all... Ben Franklin, very good. All right, and if the judges will cherry pick from this list, in order or randomly, some names, then I will show you how Ben Franklin might have been portrayed by these celebrities. Howard, would you like to start?
Sure, Joe Pesci.
Joe Pesci.
Tell you what, I see that Benedict Arnold come in here. I'm gonna hit him in the head with a bat.
Heidi.
George Clooney.
George Clooney. Thank you. I have lost weight. I was beginning to look like the Liberty Bell. I've handled it. Mel?
Sting.
Sting.
Declaration of Independence! Sign it, sign it!
Woody Allen. Woody Allen. I invented the bifocal lenses, so that I could both see and, and read. But it developed two different kinds of migraine headache. Thank you.
How about Robin Williams?
Sorry?
Robin Williams?
Robin Williams, in the future, people are going to think of me every time someone says it's all about the Benjamins. Oh, thank you.
Heidi.
Dr. Phil?
Dr. Phil, okay, so John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, are you having founding father issues? Is that what's happening?
Nick, I bet you got one.
Robert Downey Jr.
Robert Downey Jr.? Yes, I am wearing an iron suit. It's a portable Franklin stove. It's a prototype. And from Twitter?
On Twitter, they wanted to see Jay Leno.
Jay Leno. I cannot wait until in this country we have freeways so that I can take all my futuristic car collection on them and drive everywhere. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow. Jim, Mel, how did he do?
Well, I have to say, you were completely on point. I was completely entertained. I was smiling the whole time. Well done. You just did a great job. Really liked it.
Heidi.
I think especially when you do Robin Williams. I mean, you just become him. I loved it too. Very entertaining.
Howie.
I got to say that was, not only are you funny, and not only do you have great stage presence, but the ability to, because you have no way of knowing what we're going to say, so you have to adjust in that moment. People don't realize, because they don't see the gears working, how tough that is. So to work under that pressure, under that, on this huge stage, you are amazing. So I loved it. I laughed. The audience laughed. I also like to take this moment to say I'm a huge fan of your mom's, and she's got to be so proud of you right now, because you, sir, are a star. She's here. There she is right there. You did good. You did good.
Judge Howard Stern.
Well, first of all, I too want to say to Mrs. C, I love the way she dealt with Fonzie. She really told him off when it was appropriate, and I give her a big thumbs up. And for you, look, I have mixed feelings about your act. I love your voices. I think you're spot on. All of your characters are truthful. Problem is, when you're talking about Ben Franklin, I thought some of the material kind of falls short. I find myself wanting a bit more in terms of comedy from you. I wish the characters had a little bit more to say.
But the material had to match the voice. He didn't know what voice we were going to give him.
I understand that, but we have to laugh ultimately. But you are.
I laughed. I laughed.
Good.
Wrong.
I'm not wrong. I'm always right.
All right, well, the judges loved all your impressions. They love your presentation, but how do you feel this went tonight for yourself?
I'm just so honored to be here in front of this crowd at this historic theater. Thank you.
Right on. So what is your when we talk about auditions, I have so many different audition stories, but what is your favorite audition and experience? And then I'd like to know, what is your worst audition experience?
Okay, I've got him. I got him in the chamber. So I think the best one was the first. I've done 5 movies with Ron Howard, who obviously I met in my youth from my mom's show, but he's always been a real supporter and it's a very kind and completely brilliant director. So it's always a pleasure to get the call. But my first job with him, I had to audition, and it was a movie called The Paper, starring Michael Keaton eventually, and Glenn Close and Marissa Tomei. And there was a scene with Marissa Tomei. And when I auditioned, I was playing a guy who was like a lawyer and was meeting Marissa Tomei, married to Michael Keaton's character in the movie. And we were having, a discussion, and she wanted some information from me, a file, it's a bit of a important thing to the plot. And at the same time, my character is kind of hitting on her. Okay, so I understood that. So when I did the read through with the casting person in front of Ron, and then Ron said, "Now, that the character Marissa's playing is 8 months pregnant." And I said, "No, I was unaware of that. That was not revealed to me." That changes things tremendously. It's not just a guy hitting on a woman; it's a guy hitting on an 8 months pregnant woman who's obviously married. And like, wow, I didn't have the presence of mind to go, all right, let me take a second. Let me recalibrate. This is a whole, I don't know who this guy is, But I did the audition, and I read it for him another couple of times. Then I walked out of there and I thought, all right, well, that was a good experience. I learned something. And I made notes on the script. Here's what I would have done, blah, blah, blah. Then about a month or so later, I heard, well, Ron's gonna hire you. You get the part. It was my first feature film, and I got to work with Marissa Tomei. And by that time, I was well aware of her condition, and it turned out to be a really exciting experience. It's a fun little movie that didn't do very well, but it's a delightful film about the newspaper business, and so many stars are in it. Jason Robards, one of my heroes. It was one of the last films he made. Jason Alexander, Randy Quaid, just tons of people in that movie. And it was a real fun experience. But that audition was fun because it seemed like it was bad, and it turned out to be good. And then the worst experience, there are many nightmarish ones, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
They're endless. But the one that came to mind was when I still can't quite believe it. I was reading for the American version of The Office back when they were casting The Office.
Okay.
And they do a thing called a pre-read, which means you go in with a casting assistant usually, and they read you and they determine whether you should go to the next level. They kind of go, okay, no, he's fine. He's got something. There's something here, there's a possibility here, whatever. So I went in for this pre-read, and I was a big fan of the British Office. Still am. And so, for better or for worse, I still had kind of that vibe of show, which had turned out to be quite different from the American one in my head. But that's all sort of beside the point. So the woman, there's only 2 people in the room, me and this casting assistant, whose name I've forgotten. And she's reading with me, and she's reading the part of a girl who I've insulted so badly. I'm playing the Michael Scott character. I've insulted her so badly, she's in tears. So she started reading, and then shortly afterwards, she covered her face and pretended to be crying throughout the whole audition. So I felt kind of left out of the process. There was no camera. They were not videoing it. So her entire evaluation of my performance was audio, I guess, and while she was crying. So afterwards, I thought, why did I even go in there? But that was pretty bad. I mean, it didn't matter because I think at the time, probably right at that very moment, they were cutting a big deal with Steve Carell. So who cares? But I've never had that quite happen before. There's always something different, like phones go off and people burst in, smoke alarms go off. You have to evacuate the building. Dogs go crazy. There's always strange things that happen.
I can't tell you how many times I've walked out of an audition and thought that I just totally blew it, and just kicking myself in the butt. And then I end up booking it. And totally the opposite as well, where I think, oh man, I hit that out the ballpark.
Yeah.
I feel good about this one.
Never hear from him again.
Don't even get a call back. It's really funny. Now you have an online course, I believe. Is it just online?
Yeah, it's videos, and an ebook, or several ebooks actually. Yeah, I have an online course because I've been a working actor for 35 plus years, and I've done
It's called Becoming a Working Actor, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
and and you can find out about it at jimworkingactor.com. And it's a series of videos about all the steps that I've done to keep my career growing and thriving. It's kind of easy to get a job as an actor. You can get that first job. Sometimes you get it right away. So beginner's luck is very potent in this business. You don't think anything of it. A friend says, hey, I'm going to audition. You want to go to audition with me? Oh, yeah, sure. I'll tag along. Boom, you get the job and your friend goes, thanks a lot. That happens all the time. I've heard so many stories like that. So it's easy to get that job or by some other means. Maybe you audition and get it legitimately. But it's very tricky then to keep it rolling and keep it growing, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
So I've been paying attention to what I've been doing over the last 35 years. I use things that I learned from my mom. I learned things in different areas and put it to work. And so I turned it into a course, where it's a series of videos and an ebook. Also one on how to do voiceovers and how to get into the voiceover business, because that's also of interest. And I have a course on how to do impressions for people that might want to get into the impressions realm, because it's actually quite satisfying. A lot of fun. People love it. And so those 3 courses are available at jimworkingactor.com.
Okay, right on. And tell us about this, the movie. It's called Welcome to Chippendales, and you're playing Donahue, correct?
Phil Donahue.
Okay,
Yeah,
Phil Donahue.
it's actually a limited series. It'll be on, I think, Disney Plus. And I think that's right. Anyway, yeah, it's about the Chippendales dancers, how they got their start. It's quite an interesting story. And Juliette Lewis is in it, and some other actors that you mentioned. And they were looking for somebody. I guess when the Chippendales dancers really hit it big, they were kind of introduced to America on the Phil Donahue show. I was doing other things in the 80s. I missed it. But as an impressionist here, I just have, I watched Phil Donahue on YouTube, okay, and I sort of put together an audition for them. I wore a white hairpiece that I have, and by golly, I got the job. So you'll see me in that show introducing Chippendales dancers.
I was wondering what Phil Donahue had to do with Chippendales. I was trying to figure that out.
Phil Donahue was never a Chippendales dancer. Try though he might. It just didn't work out.
And you're working on right now. You're working on Hunters. Or are you still?
No, we're waiting on Hunters to be released. That's season 3, I think it is, 2 or 3 of Hunters, the Al Pacino Nazi hunting show on HBO. I've got a new series that's going to launch any day now, called The Big Door Prize on Apple TV.
Oh, great!
And that stars the very charming and funny actor Chris O'Dowd. I don't know if you know him from Bridesmaids and other things. Also, a wonderful series he did in England called The IT Crowd, which is so freaking funny you'll laugh out loud at it. But our show is called The Big Door Prize, and any day now they're going to announce when it's on. It's
right on.
a really charming and funny show. And I just did an episode of Young Sheldon, so I keep pretty busy.
Oh, right on. Yeah, they did. Well, that's great. The working actor.
Boy, so you're probably searching your memory banks there, but I'm also the voice of Colonel Sanders on your radio and your TV commercials, and also on your phone. I guess it got ads on your phone. I don't know how to do that. Usually, if you wanted to put an ad on a phone in my day, you'd have to cut it out of the newspaper and put it on there with some stickum.
What other living people have you played?
Well, I played I don't know if he's living in Apollo 13. I played a real mission controller. In Frost Nixon, I played a real Nixon team member. They're not always really super famous people. Gosh, now I'm blanking out on what other actual living people I've done.
Yeah, I don't mean they have to be living. I mean a real person.
Actual people. Yeah, I've done Richard Nixon quite often. Richard Nixon is someone who shows up in films and television a lot lately. For example, in Gaslit, and also a show called Timeless. And I've done John F. Kennedy, JFK, quite a few times. In fact, in the new movie Blonde, which is a very popular movie that's out right now, I did not portray physically the actor, but or rather the ex-president, but I did provide his voice. So they had a different actor. It's kind of funny. Funny to me, not funny to this actor, but I should really learn this guy's name. But he played Kennedy. He looks like Kennedy. He's a wonderful actor, but he's Scandinavian, so he doesn't really sound like John F. Kennedy. So I looped his voice, and I've looped that same actor's voice on another TV pilot years ago where he was portraying Robert Redford. And I did Robert Redford's voice, and he portrayed. I'd rather look like Robert Redford than sound like him. But anyway, that's the way that the chips fall.
Right. And what about Christopher Walken?
Yeah, what about him? I mean, he's an iconic, great actor, and also just a inspirational guy.
Yeah.
A great hoofer, Broadway hoofer and singer. I mean, he does it all. He's a quadruple threat.
I watched that video on YouTube that when you're doing like you're talking to him on the phone, and your mom comes in, and I just thought that was great. She's looking great too, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, she looks amazing.
It really is. She seems like she's all there.
All there all day long. Yeah, she's amazing. My mom is a real treasure. We are just we just over the moon with her, and everybody that meets her just loves her. She's just charming and fun, and she's enjoyed her life, and she's enjoyed the honor of representing, the sweetness of her character with the world.
I bet. Let's go back to Gaslit, because I'm curious what that's about. I'm assuming it's about gaslighting.
I think if you've done your research, my friend. Yes. You read the title of the show. It's about Martha Mitchell chiefly. It really tells several stories, but it's a Watergate era series. So it's about Martha Mitchell and how she was really the one who was gaslit. In other words, the people in power, according to this story, tried to silence her by portraying that she was crazy. I mean, that's what gaslighting is. You say, well, this person's nuts, they're out of their mind, and so everything they say is invalidated. And she was the wife of the Attorney General, John Mitchell, played by Sean Penn in several pounds of prosthetic makeup. And Julia Roberts played Martha Mitchell. It's also a story about, in a kind of a side channel of G. Gordon Liddy during that time period, and also John Dean, played by Dan Stevens. He does a great job. All the performances, I think, were really good in the series. I think it's about an eight-part series on Stars, so you can get through it pretty fast. It's an interesting story. I liked it. I think it came out really well. I got to work with Sean Penn. I got to work with Julia Roberts, so I have no complaints. I had a great time. And the director, Matt Ross, terrific director, directs actors very, very well. He's an actor himself. So like Ron Howard, he knows just what to say. He can say, 4 or 5 words and you're like, okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite actor is and comedian is Steve Martin. And you remind me of him a lot. Do you do, Steve?
Well, thank you very kindly. I can do a species of Steve Martin, I suppose. And the older I get, the more he and I look alike. I'm not sure what he's doing to create that effect. There will be a lawsuit, at least one.
Very good.
Yeah,
Very
he's a
good. That's
very
great,
talented
man.
man. Very talented man. Yeah.
Yeah, and you are too. I have to say that. I'm very impressed with you. What is your, and I ask all my guests this, what is your favorite story? You know, when you tell stories about your career, either it be on a set or, you know, on stage, what is your favorite story, your favorite memory from your career?
Wow, it's a long career so far.
Yeah.
I hope to make many more memories. Gosh, what would be of interest to you? I worked on The Grinch, which was every day was kind of a wonderful experience and new and unexpected. And I don't know, you probably recall that Jim Carrey, who starred in The Grinch,
Right.
was quite uncomfortable during that because of the magnificent costume and prosthetic makeup that he was given to wear was pretty challenging. And I have my own reality on it, but in his case, he had, well, I mean, he was covered with a suit made of yak fur, number one, and
Wow.
he had this headpiece, prosthetic makeup, two sets of artificial teeth, or his own teeth. And then the worst was these, what they're called full scleral eye contact lenses, which means they cover the white of the eye as well, because if you recall, he had yellowish, very, very yellow eye whites. And
Right.
whereas today, it's a very simple thing to do that in post, but at the time, I guess it wasn't. So he had to wear these scleral eye caps for 4 months, 4+, I imagine. And the thing that made it difficult was, I mean, that in and of itself would be a lot to confront and to create comedy underneath all that baggage, which he did so capably. But our set at Universal was a massive set. I forget which soundstage it was, what number, it doesn't matter, but it was huge, beautifully art directed, all these amazing buildings and structures, and a lot of snow. And the snow was fake, obviously. We live in Southern California. And it was made mostly out of paper pulp. The problem with paper pulp is that it particularizes, it becomes, dusty and gets in the air. And as people are walking around and cameras and equipment and his crew, the air is full of minute particles of paper, which would get into Jim's eyes and under his eye caps. I can only imagine how awful that felt. And he was struggling with that the whole time. So, and he would complain, not to me. I didn't hear it, but I know that he would complain. And I know that Ron Howard was particularly sympathetic to it. And so Ron, who was directing the picture, decided to do something about it. So one day I came to work early in the morning because I had to get there about 6 in the morning because my makeup took 3 hours. Everybody's took about 3 hours. So by 9 o'clock, we'd be rolling out of our makeup and onto the set. And I saw the Grinch walking down on the lot there, and I noticed he was a little shorter than Jim, and so I thought, well, that's his stunt guy. That's Pat Banta. That's the guy that I know that does all Jim's stunts, and he's all made up because he has to look like the Grinch. And so I said, "Hey, Pat," and good morning. And he said, "Oh no, it's Ron." So Ron Howard had gone to makeup at 6 a.m. or earlier, and gotten the full makeup and suit just to direct that day, to see what's it like to spend a day in this outfit. And I just had so much admiration for that. It's like, okay, he's really going to see. And I think by the end of the day, he was like, yeah, this is pretty tough.
Yeah, that's good.
But then again, you're being paid pretty well. So let's,
Yeah.
call it as we see it.
One more question. I want to know if when you were growing up, did you have any influences, people that you admired, that you, maybe got a little bit from?
Absolutely. Many people, all different artists. And I'm an impressionist mainly these days. That's kind of what I do when I'm not doing just straight TV work. And as you said, even that turns out to be an impression sometimes. But I used to watch Rich Little, who's still with us, and I've met him a couple times, and he's a very friendly guy. And whenever he was on television, if I'd stumbled upon him on some talk show or on his short-lived series, Copycats, I felt like, oh, this is delicious. It was something just very exciting about it. I never had the idea that, oh, well, this is what I will do. This is my life path, or, oh, I want to be like that guy. I just felt like a total audience member. I just felt like I just enjoy consuming this kind of entertainment very much. So it was a treat to finally meet him. And as I said, he's still performing. He's in his 80s now, but he still does Vegas. I think that's where he lives. And I realized Vegas is not that far away. I should actually go and see his show. So I hope to do that sometime.
Yeah, right on. Maybe he'll do an impression of you while he's up there, while you're there.
And maybe I'll knock him on his ass if he does that.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, I bet. So one more time, tell everybody about your becoming a working actor. The website is jimworkingactor.com.
That's right, jimworkingactor.com, and it's money back guarantee, so you can check it out, see if you like it. It is designed to help people start and keep a career going.
What advice would you give to someone just starting out? Everybody, I get asked that question so many times. I'm sure you do too. How do you get in the business? How do you become an actor?
Well, I always say the first step is to kind of make that decision. I'm going to be an actor, and to really make it a solid decision. And then envision the kind of things that you'd like to do. Like when you watch television, don't watch television always as an audience. Watch it as a professional. In other words, you watch a show, you go, well, now what part in this show would I be right for? Am I right for this character or that character? Okay. And then, observe where it takes a little bit of self-understanding. It takes a little bit of knowing yourself, and being able to see yourself very clearly. But where do I fit into a show like this? I love this show. I love this style. I love this kind of story. What could I do to help this story? Do I play the lawyer? Do I play the young leading man? Am I play this funky guy that comes in and says, "Hey, is that your car out front?" What part is it that you're playing? And then begin to envision, like, what sort of roles would you like to do that fit into that world? And that's just a sort of an opening thing. There's a whole procedure that you would do, but I think that's very helpful to not just watch TV or watch films as a person who's like, wow, I'm being transported away from my troubles. That's fine. You can do that all you want, but also at some point, take a look at a show and go, if I was a professional actor, what part would I want to play in this kind of show? And begin to look at things with a little more judgment. That's a start. Right on.
And background acting, do you recommend first time actors that just breaking into the business to do a couple of background roles just to get their feet wet?
I don't think it's a bad idea. I think if you've never had experience on a set, if you have never been on a set before, it's its own world with its own rules, as you know. And so it's good to get a little familiarity. You could, if you had a friend who's an actor, you could go and visit them, but you can also work as an extra. The only thing I would warn you against is they kind of treat you like a peon. Your job is way down the totem pole. They herd you like animals, you'll make your $100 or whatever, but you will be treated rather like a second class citizen. So don't fall for that. In other words, don't walk away from that going, well, I'll never really be an actor, but I guess I could stand over here in this jury box and nod my head, knowingly. Remember that it's a means to an end, and keep your own good opinion of yourself intact throughout the experience, because it can be kind of, not a very pleasant time.
Right. And do you think you should cut it off at a certain point, like not do too many? Because
that's a personal thing, I think. And I believe there's a way to kind of earn your way into SAG. It's not the route I came up, so I can't speak to it. But if you get to a point where you're like, wow, I've done 30 jobs and I made my, some money, and I guess this is what I do for a living. I think you've gone too far. You got to keep your eye on the goal of like having a part, where the character has a name, and his name is Melvin or something, and just juror number one, or a crowd person, and lines, and forwards the story. That will give you some satisfaction. Just walking by and pretending to eat at a restaurant, or saying, "Hey, I'll take that newspaper," is never going to really satisfy a creative person. So, you do it, I think, until set yourself a goal. You go, well, I want to learn about what do the ADs do? What do the assistant directors do? What's a set like? What happens when they call action? What happens when they call cut? All that sort of stuff. What does it mean to go to wardrobe? Once you know all that, okay, then you can start to kind of say, don't need to take these jobs anymore. Now I want to get something a little bit better.
I myself started off doing background work. You might recognize me. Tell everybody your TikTok page.
Oh, it's
on TikTok.
Jim Meskimen. Yeah, Meskimen, Jim Meskimen on TikTok. And happy to have you there, putting a lot of stuff up. My YouTube channel is Jimpressions. I'm at Jimpressions on Instagram. We're putting stuff out all the time.
Again, that's one word, Jimpressions.
That's right.
Okay, I like that, by the way. That's really, really cool. And that was the title of the show, right?
That's right. It's my that was my one-man show that got me kind of started, and I put those up every now and then.
Okay. Any parting words? What would you like to say to your fans before we go?
I'll just like to say thanks a lot for everybody tuning in. It's a rock and roll world, and you got to rock it, or else you'll get rolled over, I guess.
They call him Johnny Rock and Roll. They call him Johnny Rock and Roll. They call him Johnny Rock and Roll. He gets you hot if you're cold.
Listen all day and all night.
Eat the steak and then get a pen.
Oh, gnarly!